Star Trek: The Next Generation, Starfleet Academy, Starfall, Chapter 3. Louis stared at his friend. "You're not going," he yelped, his voice rising with disbelief. The other young people in the waiting area looked around at them. Jean-Luc spoke in a whisper. "I'm not. I'll see you off, though, and then I'm going to Paris. I have business there." Louis gave him a hard, suspicious look. The two of them sat at an umbrella-shaded table on a wharf at Marseille. The Mediterranean sparkled beyond. Green close in to shore, brilliant blue farther out. 100 young men and women were gathered on benches at other tables, waiting for the hovercraft that would take them out to MedLab 1. Jean-Luc had waited until they were well away from Le Bar before telling Louis his plan. Now he waited for his friend's reaction. After a long moment, Louis said, "You're going to do it, aren't you? You're going to apply for retesting to Starfleet Academy." Jean-Luc nodded. Louis sighed. "Ah, you have a lot of courage, Jean-Luc." "No more than you." Jean-Luc gestured at the sea. "You're going down to live 40 meters below the surface, and you swim only a little better than a rock." There are dangers, and then there are dangers," Louis returned in a moody growl. "Jean-Luc? I thought that was you. Remember me?" A pretty blonde girl had walked over to their table and now stood with her hands on her hips and a broad smile on her freckled face. Jean-Luc recognized her at once. With an answering smile, he cleared his throat and in his best debate team manner said, "Resolved. Kimberly Bloom is the most attractive student to take this tour. I take the affirmative." She took the chair next to Louis, laughing and holding out her hand for Jean-Luc to shake. She was radiantly beautiful, blue-eyed, with a lively face made interesting by those few freckles splashed across the bridge of her nose. "Took you long enough to spot me, mate," she said, her Australian accent as strong as he remembered it. "I thought you'd blinking well forgotten me." "Oh, I never forget anyone who scores more points than I do," Jean-Luc said with a rueful grin. "Kimberly, this is my friend Louis Blanchard. Louis, Kimberly Bloom, who led the All-Australia debate team last year at the Hemisphere Finals." "And who sneaked out a win over the Western European team," Kimberly said. "Hi, Louis. So you're along for the undersea trip too? Isn't this great?" "It sure is," Louis said, staring at her. "I'm just here to see Louis off," Jean-Luc quickly explained. Kimberly smiled at Louis. "Hey, tell you what. Hey, how do I do Australian? Oi, tell you what. I'll get my gear and we'll hang out together. I was afraid I'd be all alone this trip. It's wonderful to have friends about." She sprang up and walked away. Beyond her, Jean-Luc saw a white craft coming in fast toward the wharf. He got to his feet. "Well, this is where I leave you. Louis?" Louis murmured. He was still staring at Kimberly, who was busily gathering up her luggage. "You be careful," Jean-Luc said, grinning at his friend. "I've never seen you this dumbstruck before." "Jean-Luc," moaned Louis. "That's because I've never been in love before." Paris in May was a beautiful old city, but Jean-Luc hardly noticed it. He spent 3 days in the Paris Xenology Libraire, the most complete collection of information on alien life and planets that Earth possessed. He methodically arranged to have book after book transmitted to his home over the computer network, knowing that each one would help his chances of passing the exams. Of course, he carefully arranged to have transmission begin only after he planned to be back in Le Bar. It wouldn't do for Maurice to demand why he was doing all this reading on Vulcan philosophy, Klingon military organization, and Andorian technology. Finally, On the fourth day of his stay, Jean-Luc worked up the nerve to take a short walk from his hotel. Really just around the block. He'd chosen his hotel for this one purpose, after all. Now he plucked up all of his courage to follow through with his plan. The local applications office for Starfleet Academy was hardly more than a small room divided in half by a chest-high counter. One woman worked there, a grandmotherly type who wore the silver and gray uniform of a retired Starfleet engineering officer. "May I help you?" she asked with a smile as Jean-Luc came in from the sunny street. Are there any openings up for the July testing period?" Jean-Luc heard himself ask. "I'm sorry," she said, making his heart sink. "If you want to test at the main center, you have to apply 4 months in advance." "No," Jean-Luc said hurriedly. "No, I don't have to go to San Francisco. I thought maybe the local center might have a space or two." She looked at him. You realize that all these secondary testing areas have a pretty strict quota system. Really, one must score more highly at the European Center than at the main location to be considered for admission." Yes, I know that," said Jean-Luc. He had studied the statistics carefully. The secondary centers in Europe, Asia, Australia, and South America were always the choice of the tentative candidates. Not many of them ever made it into the academy. Those who were more sure of themselves always went to San Francisco for the tests. Jean-Luc said, "I do mean to pass. I couldn't apply earlier for the main center because of family problems." It was true in a way. Maurice was family, and he was a problem. "I see. Well, let me check the records." The woman tapped a computer board and glanced at a display screen. "You're in luck," she said, her tone surprised, at least a little pleased. "We have one position open. Do you want an application form?" Jean-Luc had not expected his throat to be so dry. He licked his lips. "Yes, please." She handed him a computer pad. "You can sit over there to fill out the form," she said, pointing to a small booth in the corner. "Good luck." Good luck indeed, thought Jean-Luc. If his father ever found out about this, he would need all the good luck in the world and then some. He began to enter his name on the application form and tried to get over the feeling as he added each letter that he was making the biggest mistake of his life. "You're in Madrid?" asked Louis, looking baffled. "I thought you were going to Paris." "I did for 4 days," Jean-Luc patiently explained. "Then I spent the next 2 at the Madrid Technological Center studying the application of Cochrane fields and warp drives. And how was your stay in MedLab?" Louis could not keep a grin from his face. "Marvelous! Marvelous! I've been accepted for the autumn term. Kimberly may apply later. They accept students right up to August. And she hasn't made up her mind yet. Oh, she wants me to ask you something." Jean-Luc had met Louis at the Marseilles dock. Now the two of them were waiting for the shuttle that would take them on the short flight back to Le Bar. The terminal was a busy one with travelers bustling to and fro, and the two of them had settled on a bench in an out-of-the-way corner to get their story set. "What does Kimberly want?" Jean-Luc asked. "Well, she has a twin sister." "I know. She spoke about her when we talked at the debate tournament. What's her name?" "Melissa, Misty for short." Jean-Luc nodded, remembering the name now. "Interested in computer science, isn't she?" "Yes, studying at Melbourne. Anyway, she's coming to Paris next month, and the two of them are going to take a cycling tour of France. They want us to come along." With a tilt of his head, Jean-Luc glanced at his friend. "I don't think I can," he said. Louis made a face. "Oh, come on. Kim talked of you the whole time. It would be a lot of fun, and I really want to go. I mean, I really, really want to go." Laughing, Jean-Luc said, "Maybe you'd better not. I'd say you are pretty far gone already. But, look, I have lots of preparation to do in the next month. All sorts of things to learn. I'm sorry, Louis, but I can't make the trip." Then I had to go with them on my own. Louis said, "What a tragedy!" "That's your choice," said Jean-Luc. "I'm warning you, though, be very careful. If Misty is anything like her sister, you're going to be head over heels with both of them." "That is a cutting remark," Louis returned with dignity. "Just because I value Kim's friendship doesn't mean I feel romantic about her. And even if I did, I wouldn't feel the same way about her sister. And besides—" "There's a shuttle," Jean-Luc said, standing. "Very well, do whatever you want. But on the way home, do me a big favor and tell me all about our trip to Medlab 1. When my parents ask me what we did there, I want to be able to give them some believable answers." All right, said Louis, as they walked toward the boarding gate. "First of all, Kim Bloom looks absolutely stunning in a bathing suit." On the flight home, Jean-Luc learned lots more. Unfortunately, hardly any of it had to do with Medlab 1. Chapter 4. June began with the usual summer chores to be done on a vineyard run on old-fashioned principles. Jean-Luc, Robert, and Maurice spent hour after hour in the sun, inspecting the vines, making sure the clusters of swelling grapes were well supported on their arbors, looking for telltale spots that would mark the onslaught of disease, fungus, or insect parasites. When they found anything suspicious, they had to go to work at once to cure the disease, stop the fungus, remove the parasites. It would be so easy, Jean-Luc thought for the 1,000th time, to rig biofuel generators to keep out pests and to neutralize fungus spores and bacteria. But that would be an invasion of the sacred vineyard by technology, and Maurice wouldn't hear of it. For his part, Maurice was exceptionally cheerful. The harvest promised to be a bountiful one, much larger than the vineyard had ever before produced. Even better, the Picard Noir 2316 had proved to be a superb vintage. It was even superior to the wonderful 2315. Last year, Maurice had lost the Prix du Soleil to an Italian competitor who grew his grapes on the Cortez space station with all the help that technology could give him. Maurice took some comfort in the fact that it was a hard decision. It took the judges an unusually long time to decide. This year, Maurice thought the coveted award was his. He was already planning his trip to Paris for the official tasting and awards ceremony. And so June went on, day after sweltering day, with both brothers and their father hard at work. If Jean-Luc seemed more exhausted than usual, why, that was only to be expected. His later hours could be chalked up to his youth. If he labored in his room to build a perfect model of the Orlando, a Constellation-class starship, that was only recreation. It certainly could not be called studying, even if the model was complete down to the Jeffries tubes and the antimatter containment field course. If on the weekends Jean-Luc took the family air car apart and then reassembled it, that was simply an excess of youthful energy. It couldn't have anything to do with practical and applied engineering skills. Or at least that was what Jean-Luc hoped his father would think. Maurice seemed not to notice, even though once or twice Jean-Luc caught suspicious glances from his brother Robert, who occasionally used the holophone and the computer terminals, could hardly fail to see that Jean-Luc's computer files had swollen to hundreds of times their normal size. But if he suspected his brother was up to something, at least Robert had the grace not to mention it. And anyway, Robert, just like Jean-Luc, was overworked and tired. Finally, toward the middle of the month, they all met in late afternoon, after a long day in the vineyard, all of them sweating from the hot summer sun. Their labor had paid off, though, for the vineyard was in excellent shape, the vines heavy with their burdens of ripening grapes. Maurice clapped both his sons on the back. "Better and better," he boomed. "And next year we'll have the white grapes as well. Think what that means." "We'll need more help," Jean-Luc said. "Oh, rubbish. We can handle the work. We're Picards," Maurice said with his deep laugh. "Ha ha ha! 3 strong backs, 3 sharp minds, like the 3 musketeers, aren't we?" "Father," Robert said gently, I won't be here next year, remember? Maurice grinned at his son. Well, maybe you won't be and maybe you will. Who knows? If things turn out as well as I think, I may just have to call you back from Alcarps Beta 2 6 months early. You wouldn't want to miss the summer and autumn anyway. It will be a grand harvest. Robert's face set itself in a grim expression. I won't be able to complete my course of study in only 6 months, he said. There's no sense in going at all if I can't earn my diploma. Father, you'd better make other plans. You'll come round, Maurice insisted. This is your home, where your roots are. You mark my words. When you get word of how the vineyard thrives this year, next year, whatever, how heavy the vines will be, you'll want to return for the harvest. Oui, bien sûr, d'accord. Robert wouldn't have to come back early. We could bring in more help, Jean-Luc said in a tentative voice. I'm sure lots of the high school students would like to come after school to learn. Amateurs, Maurice bellowed, though still in a tone of high good humor. Jean-Luc, you can't trust grapes to just anyone. They have to be pampered by people who love and understand them. There's always automation, Jean-Luc said. His father gave him a playful rap on the shoulder. Now you're just trying to make the old man angry, and I won't be angry on such a beautiful day. No, we Picards take care of the vineyard all by ourselves, without any help from amateurs, either flesh and blood or electronic. You and Jean-Luc take care of it, you mean? Robert insisted bitterly. Don't count on having me back, father. Of course, it's well known that little brother can do the work of any 2 men, so you don't need to worry about it. You won't need me at all. Ha ha ha. Maurice stared at his elder son. You'll think better of it, he said, and turned abruptly. He strode away, leaving the 2 brothers at the edge of the southern field. Don't set him off, Jean-Luc warned Robert. He'll forget about ordering you home early if you don't argue with him. But you know how he is when you oppose him. What are you angry about anyway? You're going to be going off-world soon. Oh, get out of my sight, Robert growled. Jean-Luc felt anger hot inside him like a tight ball of fire. With an effort, he controlled his temper. Maybe a run would help, he thought. A nice long one. He went back to his room, changed from his working clothes to a t-shirt and running shorts, pulled out a well-broken-in pair of running shoes, and then rummaged in a dresser drawer for a sweatband and wristbands. He paused in the kitchen to fill a liter bottle with water. He was ready for a long run. He spent some minutes stretching out, then set off at an easy pace. It was a hot summer afternoon, and soon his headband was soggy. He felt the air cooling the sweat on his face, arms, and legs. He began to tire, as he always did, and to feel an ache in his thighs. He ignored everything. Before long, he gained a second wind. This was what he ran for, that wonderful moment when new strength came flooding into his weary legs, when it seemed he never had to stop but could just keep on running forever. He settled his stride into a comfortable, smooth, kilometer-eating pace and cleared his mind of everything but the pathway. By the time Jean-Luc returned to the vineyard, the back way, down the lane that divided the new land from the old, more than 3 hours had passed. The sun had already set, but a bright summer twilight lingered in the west. Jean-Luc estimated that he had run 20 kilometers or so. No marathon, but a good solid workout anyway. He felt tired but happy. He slowed to a walk to cool down, and when he came to the chateau, he was breathing normally and all but glowing from his run. Robert banged out of the house and came straight for him, his face dark with anger. Jean-Luc blinked at him, startled. What? Robert pushed his shoulder hard, making him stagger back a step. You ran away! You left me to deal with it, Tim! Why are you always the perfect one? He shoved him again, so hard that Jean-Luc almost fell backward. Stop it! Jean-Luc snapped. I don't even know what you're upset about. What do you think? Robert charged him. Jean-Luc, taken off guard, stumbled back and fell under his brother's weight. "Come on," grunted Robert. "Fight!" Very well. Robert was trying to pin him down as if they were in a wrestling match, but Jean-Luc's arms were slick with sweat, and Robert couldn't keep his hold. Jean-Luc squirmed enough to bend his leg, and he used Robert's momentum to flip him over. Both of them scrambled up at once. Robert, heavier and more solid, lunged again. Jean-Luc, lighter and more agile, dodged him. They circled, crouching. Robert feinted to the right. Jean-Luc instinctively dodged, but Robert had planned the move well. He seized Jean-Luc in an expert half-Nelson and tried to force him to his knees. Jean-Luc knew a way to break the hold, but it required both strength and quickness, and his run had left him tired. He pivoted, bent, and tried to throw Robert off him, but failed. Robert was grunting with effort now, pressing him toward the ground. One last hope. Jean-Luc guessed where Robert's feet were planted, set his right foot, and attempted a backward sweep with his left leg. He connected, and Robert toppled, losing his hold. But he was up again in an instant, charging forward to tackle Jean-Luc at the waist. The impact sent them both rolling on the ground. Then suddenly their mother was there yelling, "Stop this!" at the top of her lungs. She was usually so quiet that the shout had the effect of a gunshot. Both Jean-Luc and Robert froze in position, and then they rolled apart and got to their feet. Yvette Picard was standing with her hands on her hips. Her eyes flashed with anger. "You two should be ashamed!" Robert slapped some of the dirt from his trousers. "Good thing you stopped us," he growled. "No doubt the wrestling champion would have beaten me senseless." He turned and walked away, just as Maurice had walked away from the two brothers earlier that day. Jean-Luc was panting for breath. Yvette scowled at him. "Are you all right?" Jean-Luc nodded. "What's wrong with him?" he asked. "I just came in and he jumped me." "Walk with me," Yvette said. They went behind the chateau, toward the ancient foundations of stables and outbuildings that once had been attached to the house. Twilight was deepening. Venus shone clear and bright in the west, a dazzling white point of light, and a few stars were beginning to appear. Yvette and Jean-Luc came to the old brick well, which Maurice had repaired. It was really only decorative, but it still worked. Yvette lowered the bucket by means of a sweep, a long lever arrangement right out of the Middle Ages. She brought the wooden bucket up, dripping, and said, "Here." Jean-Luc drank the cold water gratefully, slopping some of it down his front. He had long before emptied his water bottle, and the well water was refreshing and welcome, tasting of iron and the earth. "Thank you," he said. "Your father will win the Prix du Soleil this year. That means a great deal to him." "I know." Yvette went to a stone bench near the well. A trellis of roses grew beside it, and she sat beneath the flowers. After a moment, she patted the bench. "Come and sit with me." Jean-Luc sank onto the stone seat. His muscles ached from his run and from the fight. The sweet, strong odor of roses was almost overpowering. "What's wrong with Robert?" he asked. "He had words with your father, of course," Yvette answered with a sigh. Do you understand why he's so upset, Jean-Luc?" "Because father said he will bring him back from his trip early. But that's not my fault." "That isn't the reason." For a few minutes they sat in silence. The evening sky grew darker, and a meteorite traced a brilliant path across the heavens. Actually, it's a meteorite only when it hits the ground. "What's the reason?" Jean-Luc asked eventually, as if they had been talking all along. "What do you think?" "I don't know, Mother." Jean-Luc couldn't keep all the sarcasm out of his voice. "What does Robert want from me? Doesn't he know that I've given up my biggest dream to stay here on the vineyard with father? Does he think I like this?" "Your brother has his dreams too," Yvette said quietly. "Can't you understand what they are, Jean-Luc?" "To go to Alcool or Ups Beta 2 and study viniculture, that's what he says." "He says that because the truth hurts him." After another long pause, Jean-Luc said slowly, I always thought that Robert was just like father, that he wanted to stay on the vineyard and manage it, that he wanted to win prizes for his wines. I believe you're right. Oh, what's stopping him? Jean-Luc asked angrily. You. The word hit Jean-Luc hard. He looked up at the sky. Another meteor flashed, and another. And he had been silent for a long time. Yvette said, "There are a lot of shooting stars tonight." Starfleet did that, Jean-Luc replied at once. There was an asteroid in an orbit that threatened to crash it into Earth. Starfleet vaporized it last year. The meteors are the tiny grains and particles that were left over from the explosion. We'll have several meteor showers this summer. Jean-Luc remembered something else. When they announced it on the news, someone said the season's name should be changed this year from summer to Starfall. Starfall? Not a bad name. Yes, now I remember hearing about that on the news. Jean-Luc's mind was not on shooting stars. Mother, what did you mean? I'm not stopping Robert. I wish he would take charge of the vineyard. I only want you to be left out of it. But that isn't the way your father sees it, Yvette told him. Maurice has his dreams too. You must understand, Jean-Luc. He's very proud of you. You're the genius of the family. He believes you could do great things with the vineyard, wonderful things. That's why he's getting you ready to inherit it, to run it. I don't want to do that. And Robert does, Yvette reminded him. That's why he was fighting you. You have everything that Robert would like to have, and you don't even want it. Robert sees you and knows how happy he would be in your place. That makes him angry. It isn't my fault. No one said it was. Look, it's like fireworks. Jean-Luc stared into the darkening sky. It was a riot of meteor trails, some dazzling tracks that lingered for seconds after the passage of the meteors, some flickering traces of yellow or red. All he could think about was the Starfleet ship, just a small craft with a crew of 5 that had destroyed the asteroid back in November. To the 5 crew members, that would have been a very routine mission in Earth's own backyard, just something to take up a day or two and then on to other things. To Jean-Luc, it would have been the adventure of a lifetime. Yvette said, Your father and I will go to Paris next week for the awards ceremony. I think you should come along. Why? His mother's voice was soft. It is important for a family to be together at times, especially when one or more of the family will be leaving soon. Will you come along on the trip? Jean-Luc took a deep breath. He wondered if his mother had guessed what he had done. She certainly knew that he had spent late hours with a computer, that he read far into the night. He felt an urge to confess everything to her, to tell her that he had already applied to retest for the academy. He wondered if he dared. The sky went wild with the fall of stars.